Joined now by Shawn Lewis and Ryan Mosley, the Brain Trust. Brain Trust? Ryan, I know you. Shawn, I know you a little.
Brain
M&L
drain,
Comics.
maybe.
M&L Comics.
It's a bit of a stretch to call us the brain trust, but we'll
No,
go with it, I guess.
that's fine. But brain aside, I trust that readers and thousands of them already are enjoying the Immortalis comic series now January 30th. With some help from partners from the UK. They're going to get every issue in one amazing graphic novel. Guys, let's start with Shawn. Have you woken up yet? I mean, this is when comic guys do together. There's ebbs and flows, right? There's success and there's failure, and there's I'm over this. I'm going to go do something else. And here it is coming in a little more than a month, an absolute dream come true for the both of you.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. I don't, somebody pinch me because this has just been, and me and Ryan talk about this all the time. It's just, we are so far ahead of where we thought we'd be. We were so lucky, had so many consistent fans that kept coming back, had people coming up to us at comic book conventions saying, yeah, I backed that on Kickstarter. And then they buy more and they were telling their friends, and such a groundswell of potential from all these fans that are just jumping on board. And now having Marcosia as our publisher, going into a market with the UK and overseas that we've never been in, it's just phenomenal. It's just, I mean, I'm scared and excited to see where we're at in a year from now. So
Ryan's asked me the other day. He goes, "Hey, check out my signature. Does this look good? Because I'm signing stuff, and I'm like, I think there's some other things. Don't make it to where people can replicate it. It's got to be unique to you. It's snowflakey in every way."
Oh,
When
jeez.
the first person came up to you in Colorado, Ryan, when you guys were at Comic Con, and they asked you to sign their comic, what did that feel like?
It is the most surreal feeling that you'll ever have, and I never expected in my entire life to have like something that I had been part of, let alone something that we'd actually published together. Somebody asked for my signature. I'm sure Shawn feels the same way. It's just like, we've talked about stories for the last decade, just kicking stuff around, and for us to actually have something out there that people want our signature for, it's amazing to me. But it's surreal. Like I still wake up every morning going, is this real? Because it doesn't feel like it, and just being where we're at with the relative quickness of getting here has been huge. Like I don't know how else to explain it. It's just one of the things that you never really think you're going to go through, and then all of a sudden you're like in the middle of it. And just every time that we go to like a Comic Con, and people, the entire time that we're there, like we're talking to like fans that have read the book, and you're just like, I can't believe that this is true. Like I can't believe that you actually read and liked something that we wrote. And we tell stories because we like to tell the stories. We wrote this story because we both really liked it. And then Shawn was the one that said, hey, let's see if we can actually get this thing published. He's like, it might take a few years to get there, but I think this story has legs. And as much of a skeptic as I am, I'm like, okay, whatever you think, you're the big comic book guy. You're the one that's already been published. I'm like, I'll just follow your lead. And him and I are both just surprised that we are where we're at right now, just
yeah,
from the relative short amount of time that we've been doing this.
Shawn, is
it
it?
was so funny. Oh, good. Sorry,
No, no,
Dave.
go ahead, please. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It was so funny. Speaking of the first comic convention me and Ryan got to do together was Denver Fan Expo. It's one of the top 10, comic conventions, PopCon. But it's so funny. Ryan's there. He's like, I'm going to go get Katie Sackhoff. So they went and got her autograph. And then he went and got Jim Lee's autograph. And you just see the gears in his head just stop when somebody comes and asks him for an autograph to sign our books after they bought it. And he realizes what that, kind of that, how those tie in together. It was so funny.
Well,
It's
It was awesome, man. It
well,
was great.
the crazy part, and this is Jim Lee. Like I've already talked to Dave about this. Jim Lee was one of my all-time biggest heroes. Like growing up,
Yeah.
he did X-Men. Like that's where I cut my teeth. X-Men in the 80s and 90s, like that was the comic book for me. And to
Yeah.
meet Jim Lee and get him to sign one of my comics, I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. And then to realize that there was somebody that was saying the exact same thing about me is like, how did this happen? Like
Had to keep it
it
painting.
just, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing feeling. Sure.
Yeah, Lee for you, Kirby for me because I'm a little older. But it's still it's the coolest thing though because you know you guys you talked about throwing stories, throwing spaghetti on the wall, see what sticks. Like for 10 years, and Shawn had done a comic, and then he was like, wasn't exactly happy with the process, or or whatever the case may be, because it is multifaceted. You got to have some help. You got to have some people that are connected in a market that is flooded with very similar titles right now. I think the cool part about and why it happened so fast and why people want Rion's signature on a comic is the fact that the story is good. The story is real good. The art is real good. The idea behind the story is real good. And it's nothing like what's on the market right now. And I think that's what people have picked up on. They're like, oh, this is new. This is different. It's shiny. So we're going to move. And man, has it moved quick.
Yeah, agreed. Speaking of, being fanboys first, for art, my time, it was George Perez and John Byrne.
Yep.
For story, Frank Miller's Daredevil, and then later on Sin City, and the writing was just phenomenal. So, I mean, it seems like a fast process, and it is for where we're at now. But me and Rion hammered at this thing for 16, 18 months, before we really started putting pen to paper and getting really serious about writing floppies or, 22, 24 pages at a time. So, yeah, it's it's like half the time I look back and see 4 years, and the other time it seems like 4 days ago. So,
well, the amazing part to me too is the fact that, Dave, you said a few things that we were really going for. Is we didn't want to be like everybody else, because Shawn and I both are like through over the superhero stuff, right? Like if we ever did a superhero title, we have some ideas that we're going to use, but like we wanted something that was just kind of different. And not only that, but we wanted the story to be good. We wanted the idea to be good. Like all this stuff didn't happen overnight. Like I had this kernel of an idea a long time ago, and I told Shawn about it. We chatted about it, and then like the next day, Shawn had like kind of reshaped it a little bit, and just the whole world that we saw opened up, right? Like I guess I kind of had like the keyhole, and then he opened the door, and like all this stuff just kind of came flooding, and we kind of had to like be the dam to stop the flooding a little bit, because there were so many different ideas that we were going back and forth with, that we really kind of had to like hone in on the story we wanted to tell. And like I was saying in the other interview, we have an idea of what happened a long time ago, and we have an idea of where it's going to end, and we're telling the story that's kind of in the middle, but there is more to the story than even what we've put out so far.
Let's talk about because I in knowing what I know about both of you personally and professionally, the amount of ideas and the way that you can go with your stories is like an LA highway, like the clover leaves and the on exits and the off exits, and it can go a million different ways. My question then for you guys, and all of them are good. So my question then is, how do you determine which way to go? Because everything you do has multiple facets to it, multiple lines, multiple connective tissue to somewhere else. How do you determine that when so much is out there? And talk about that partnership. You guys were friends before writers, friends before M&L Comics. I think that plays an interesting role in that you can be honest with each other. You're not going to hurt each other's feelings. I think there's some real intrinsic value in what you do, and you're both laughing because you're like, he doesn't know us at all. But I do want to understand the writing process. How do you narrow the scope, and how do you guys work together? Because it's like Rion said, I'll plant the seed, and Shawn, you're watering the seed, and it blooms and it grows. Talk about the process and how you guys narrow all of your ideas down to one singular story.
Well, so let me just throw this in there first. So the one thing that we have that I think other writing teams don't necessarily have, that like if it may cause friction for others, is we trust each other. Like, you know what? If I pitch an idea to Shawn, he doesn't like it. It's not like, oh, that's a crappy idea, let's not talk about it. He's the one that actually got me to like write those ideas down, and maybe it's not for this story, but maybe it's for another story, and then when Shawn comes and says, hey, does this make sense to you? And like, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense, but what have you thought about this? And like, then it changes the trajectory just slightly, and it opens up like a whole different thing. But primarily, Shawn is the one that writes the day-to-day stuff. Like, we talk about big picture a lot, but he's the one that's writing the day-to-day on a lot of the Immortalis stuff. But it's not like we don't communicate at all about this stuff. We still communicate it, and the simple fact is Shawn has got such a honed in idea of where he wants to take the characters and how they get there. And I'm there to just kind of keep them in the lane a little bit, and offer suggestions when I can. And he primarily runs with the ball as much as we need him to.
Yeah, it was weird. Mosley and I don't think our partnership would have worked if we hadn't worked together for 10 years in what was a tough industry, and developed some thick skin both with each other and in the business. But Mosley knows me well enough now that, like, if he gives me an idea, I may tell him at first, that's stupid, don't talk to me about that. But he knows if it starts nibbling at my brain, eventually it starts gnawing at my brain, I'm going to come back to him. Hey, Mosley, let's revisit that idea in about 5 or 10 days, So, or hey, Mosley, that wasn't such a bad idea, but what if we did this? What if we did this? And like I was telling you earlier, Dave, before we even sat down and really started to arc this thing out, there was 2,000 emails, 5 times as many text messages back and forth over 14, 16 months before we even started writing. And it's just, but honing it down, what's really weird about this, and not a lot of people know this, is we actually started because issue 1 in Immortalis is backstory about the heroines becoming the Immortalis. Issue 2 is kind of more of the team, but issue 3 was the first issue where they're all together. So we actually had an artist do issue 3 before they did 1 and 2. So yeah, you talk about how to kind of hone it down and get all those lanes going into flowing traffic. It can be tough sometimes, and sometimes even we're not right where we need to be. And when you've got all this backstory and, you're talking 2,000 years when you can pull from with the different characters and different archetypes and stuff, it can be tough, but that's why we had to do that, 14, 16 months of heavy outlining and figure out where we're going with it. So.
Well, in the easiest part, for this, is the fact that Shawn and I, just the work that we've done together in the past, not comic related, but just working together, we work together fairly closely. I had to learn to trust Shawn, and in turn, obviously he had to learn to trust me. And so, like, it's a lot easier for us when we go sit down to write something, because it's like, I like Shawn knows what the ideas that I have are, and he'll write something down, and it may not be exactly the way I would have done it, but it still works, and it still gets us to where we need to be. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Whatever, and it's the same. Like, we'll talk back and forth. And we had, phone calls and emails and text messages, like, and it was all over the place. Like, it was just randomly, walking from one place to another, or like, hey, I'm in the car, I've got 5 minutes, let me send this to you. And then Shawn would call me back. He's like, what are you talking about? And so then, like, we'd have a 15-minute conversation, and I'd be like heading between here and Little Rock, for example. And like, I'd pull over the side of the road and just kind of chat with him and tell him, hey, this is what I'm thinking of. It just makes it easier for him to get the idea. And so, like, that's how it really started. It wasn't like hey, we're going to meet every Wednesday at 6 o'clock and talk about the story for an hour. It was just whenever one of us was inspired, and we'd start texting back and forth. And that's really how the story kind of came together.
And what people may not, well, I was going to say, and Shawn, what people may not know about this is that you guys are in 2 different time zones, 2 different states, And so it wasn't as easy as we're going to meet. I mean, you guys had life gets in the way, job gets in the way, different time zones. So it was a labor of love, a passion project that we're going to all see will continue to grow as we get into January. And I think, you know, anytime that you have those ebb and flows and those speed bumps along the way, if you're meant to do this, it makes you stronger, right? And you guys, I think absolutely you were meant to do this just from the time spent, the sweat equity put in, the honesty that has been and trust that's been built. I think that that's what is going to lead you both to success.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like I said, we're both pretty thick-skinned. We look at when we get rejection letters, it's not, oh, well, we should probably quit. It's like, oh yeah, we'll come back to you in about 3 years, you know, and or you'll come to us in 3 years. So yeah, you know, there's a lot of stuff that life has taught us. So we're applying that to this project. And like I said, you approach a lot of these publishers, a lot of these guys with telling them you got a 6 to 8 year project, they're gonna look at you like you're crazy. So, but we know what we're doing, and we both trust each other, and we're gonna get it out there. We're gonna finish it too.
Yeah, let's talk about it because we are a little over a month away of the graphic novel version of Immortalis being able to be purchased on Amazon and in Barnes and Noble stores and many other retail outlets and comic book stores near you. Let's give the thumbnail because we don't want to give too much away. So let's give the thumbnail version of what fans are going to find in this graphic novel. Don't everyone speak at once.
I mean, it's hard. It's hard to like just put into words. Like, so, you know, I try. It's not quite like anything else that's out there right now. So we have, you know, it's a story that delves with all different facets of fantasy and realism and, you know, a whole bunch of stuff that we thought was going to be a cool story, and it absolutely is, right? But it's not exactly like anything that you've ever seen before. Like I know that there's people that try to put us into like a certain, like, oh well, it's like this. It's not like this, and it's not like this. Like I feel like we've kind of created our own lane in this story, and Shawn does the elevator pitch way better than I do on that. So I'll just flip it over to him, and he can chat it through. But I really feel like there's nothing out there that's quite like what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, I mean, just to boil it down, it's a war between heaven and hell and the old gods of myth. But even that, I mean, you know, we're taking something that's kind of done before, you know, with good omens, heaven and hell working together. And then we're throwing in the old gods of myth, kind of like with the American gods, kind of a twist to that. And then those three entities are kind of fighting against each other, but helping each other and using various, you know, archetypes to fight that battle. You know, vampires, werewolves, immortals, wizards. Yeah, it's just, yeah, I feel like I'm giving away too much, but because it seems so big when you say it like that, you know. But we try to keep the humanity in it too, you know. Our heroine's a young girl, early 20s, you know, trying to find her power and how to use her power, and it's yeah.
Does she want to use that power?
Does it? Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
So,
but the cool part though is that it is look, I've been a Batman guy all my life, and so I'm Batman. I'm Silver Surfer. You can nail me down pretty much by who I read and what I like. The cool part for me about this is it is going to be cover to cover something that everyone likes. You're right. You have created your own lane. It is not detective stories. It is not revisiting how Bruce Wayne's parents were killed for the 50th time. It's not, you know, it's none of that. It is, I like this part and I like this part and I like this part. And we're going to put them all together and we're going to make it work. And I think that's where the support has come from, because you're not hitting just one genre of fan. It's where the loyalty from that support has come from Kickstarters. It's now where the publishing folks are taking notice and others are taking notice. I think that's the cool part is you've been able, your recipe of a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of this, making a really solid story. It works.
Oh, yeah, we appreciate that because I mean, it's uh, we're both me and Ryan. We're both science fiction guys, right? Big Star Wars guys.
Yep.
But Ryan's more sci-fi, even more than that. I'm more cowboyish, Cormac McCarthy type guy. So we have all these different genres we like to put in there and just make it fun for everybody, And at the same time, when I have a good story I've written for an issue, I just can't wait. Brian, you got to read this. This is a banger. That's my thing. I'm like, if I can get the action and along with the tone and the theme of it just well balanced out, and that's what we try to do with every issue. Just keep that balance, keep everybody interested and not be like you said. I mean, nobody wants to see Bruce Wayne's parents die for the 10,000th time, So something new, something original, something exciting. That's what we're trying to give the people.
We really wanted to make sure there was no dead panels either. Like everything, every panel tells a story, right? Like every panel is there. It's integral to what's happening, right? And so one of my favorite stories that Shawn's written is about one of the main characters, but it takes place in the Old West, right? And I'm not going to give any of that away, but that is probably some of the most interesting and best writing that Shawn's done, in my opinion. And not saying that his writing isn't good across the board, but that was one of my most favorite stories, right? And the simple fact is we can place these characters that we have in different elements, and we can still tell a really good story, right? And that's the coolest part, right, for me.
Hey, we've talked a lot about the writing, and before we get to kind of tease the release here coming up next month, I do want to talk about the art because the colors, and you talked about dead panels, the colors make it so that never happened. So the artists that worked on this from all over the world really did a super nice job of capturing tone, capturing feel, capturing story, whether it's in color, whether it's in panel placement. It's amazing. We talked about you guys collaborating on the writing part. You guys had 3, 5, 7 artists through these different issues and trying to mesh all that together so it doesn't look like, oh, know who did this, know who did that, know who did this, but so it makes sense across the board. The breadth of the story had to be a challenge. You guys did that well too, just finding those folks that are super, super talented.
Well, before Shawn jumps in, this was the most difficult part of this whole process, right?
Imagine.
It was some of the stuff that like we weren't anticipating as far as like creatively finding the right artist to tell the story the way that we wanted, right? And so that was the kind of the biggest challenge. And Shawn and I had a lot of conversations about our artists in general. None of them. I'm not going to like specifically name any of them, but like there were a few that were kind of challenged, and it just sometimes we'd send an email and it would just go off to the abyss for a while, and then all of a sudden like we get like 6 pages, and it's like how can we remain consistent? So like we had a big struggle, and I'm sure the headache was even bigger for Shawn than it was for me.
But it's so funny you mentioned that, Dave, because I even told Ryan before because we planned everything floppy wise, right? Basically Kickstarter wise. We're doing 22, 24 pages selling as floppies. Once we got to put it together a graphic novel with Marcosia, I was like, I even told Ryan, I don't know about this. I mean, we got 5 different issues by 4 different artists, and you step back and look, Miguel Galindo, who did issue 1, he has such a take on almost historical art, and it's set, during the 1800s in, India and Britain. And then issue 2, Ramad, just phenomenal action. We had to bring him back for issue 5 because his action that it will always be one of my favorite panels is the, not giving away too much, but the shark in the underwater scene is just phenomenal. Then issue 3, Ben Perkins, phenomenal, almost Barry Windsor Smith, almost like kind of style, just for the little bit of action and the flashbacks. And you mentioned collars. His collar work is just phenomenal from transitioning from timeline to timeline. And then four was more of the training aspect and kind of slowing it down a little bit for the reader again, with Tam being in modern times and stuff, with Juan Felipe Sasaldo and his team. It's just, I mean, you're right. The flow ended up being way better than I was anticipating. So yeah, we got really lucky. I mean, and Ryan's right. It's a challenge when you work with, artists from Brazil, India, Portland, Los Angeles, and you got to get all these teams kind of synced up. It's just, it's crazy.
Well, it's crazy good is what it is. And so listen, hey, we've got 5 minutes left, and we'll let you guys get back to normal life. Let's talk about what to expect coming up in January. I know that you guys have hard copies in your hands. Ryan didn't let me touch it, but he showed it to me. And so you guys have hard copies in your hands. We've teased Barnes and Noble and Amazon. Talk about here in the next couple of minutes that we've got together, just what folks can expect come next month.
Release date of January 30th. We will have advanced copies at Albuquerque Comic Con. That'll be the 18th, 19th, and 20th up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That'll be the first release of this. They let us put them out a little bit early for the fans. That was actually a funny story. That was the very first con we ever did, was Albuquerque, when Immortalis was just starting out. So that's pretty awesome, kind of talk about coming full circle with everything. After that, like you said, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Walmart, Fry's, Waterstones, it's going to be out there. So that's going to be pretty phenomenal to see how that all plays out and everything. And even getting in advance, I know a lot of people get heartburn, especially with Kickstarters too, even though we're not going that route anymore, about, waiting a year for the next issue to be out. We currently only have the lettering to finish on what would have been issue 8 and 9. And the trade paperback, the second trade paperback, will probably be out around April. So, yeah,
Not
on
long
for
to
another.
wait. Yeah.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
a whirlwind. 2024 is your year.
Let's hope so. Yes.
We've heard that a few places, haven't we, Right? 2024 is your year.
Yeah,
But I know
absolutely.
you guys are working hard to make that happen. From a personal perspective, I could not be happier for the two of you. It is amazing to see good things happen to good people, and hard work and the sweat equity and the ups and downs of having something that will bear your name for eternity is an amazing thing. And I couldn't be happier. And I told Ryan earlier, Shawn, I was out shelf hunting today, I'm looking for shelf placement in Barnes and Noble. I sent you the
Nice.
pictures and the video in Facebook Messenger. I'm figuring it out where I can find this when it
There you
happens.
go.
But hey, from the bottom of my heart, congratulations to both of you, your entire team, and we could not be happier. And I am so excited to come next month.
All right. Appreciate it, Dave. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. We really appreciate you doing this for us.
Anytime, fellas. See ya.
All right. Thank you.